The Sponsorship Experts Podcast. Hello and welcome to the Sponsorship Experts Podcast. We're here with Kun Junporn Keat Paiboon, or just Kun Porn, who is the Acting Marketing Assistant Database Manager Business Development at the Sponsorship Experts. Hi Porn, how are you? And what can we expect from the June-July 2022 podcast?
I'm very well, thank you, Kun Jay. In this episode of the podcast, we take a closer look at current sponsorship opportunities and news, including GFNY Thailand and Super Sports Laguna Phuket Marathon. We also dive into the state of sponsorship post-pandemic and look at the new Personal Data Protection Act, BE 2562-2019.
In the latest newsletter out now that you can find at poolpool.co.th, has a number of new and exciting commercial sponsorship and partnership opportunities available for those who are into running and cycling, as well as some important information on Thailand's Personal Data Protection Act and a fabulous article on the sponsorship industry post-COVID-19. So let's start with one of Thailand's premier sporting events that is making a comeback next year, the Super Sports Laguna Phuket Marathon, which returns on the 10th and the 11th of June 2023. What can you tell us about this hugely popular event?
One of the premier sporting events in Phuket and wider Thailand, the Super Sports Laguna Phuket Marathon returns to Phuket on 10th to 11th June 2023. With more than 7,000 participants in the recently held Super Sports Laguna Phuket Marathon 2021, held on 11 to 12 June 2022, it is safe to say that the legendary event is back on track after a few slow years due to the pandemic. The 2022 event was a great success with runners from all over Thailand and abroad. With distances suitable for professional runners and amateurs and even children alike, Super Sport Laguna Phuket Marathon has always held a special spot on the running calendar in Asia, with runners from all over the world traveling to participate. Known for its scenic routes and family-friendly setup, with many participants taking advantage of the race location, holidaying in Phuket with friends or family before or after the race. Super Sports Laguna Phuket Marathon has 5 distances: a 2 km kids run, a 5 km run, a 10 km run, a half marathon, and a marathon. With so many races and participants of all ages and abilities, it is no surprise that Super Sports Laguna Phuket Marathon is also a fairly social event, with plenty of activities for both participants and their families and friends. The pasta party is particularly popular, giving participants a chance to carb up prior to their races. The expo is a spot for all things related to running, such as apparel, gadgets, supplements, and more. As of 2022, Super Sports Laguna Phuket Marathon is also offering the hybrid race, which combines a virtual and actual race at the same time, using real-time remote racing at the event. Integrating a hybrid race with the actual events allows remote participants, both domestic and international, to virtually join the race from anywhere in the world using the SportStat Tracker app. Remote runners will then be ranked in the race along with participants in the actual race. As in previous years, Super Sports Laguna Phuket Marathon continues to make a positive impact on the community through the Laguna Phuket Foundation, a charitable foundation supporting projects on Phuket, including the Developing Sustainable Schools program, which consists of school partnerships project, Survival Swim with Laguna Phuket, and Laguna Phuket's fully booked mobile learning center.
And what commercial sponsorship and partnership opportunities are available for those interested in the event?
We have created a package of comprehensive commercial sponsorship and partnership programs, especially for the Super Sports Laguna Phuket Marathon 2023, including 2 co-title sponsors, which have already been sold to Super Sports and to Laguna Phuket, 1 presenting sponsors with naming rights to the event, 1 host sponsor, which has also already been sold to Laguna Phuket, up to 6 co-sponsors from non-competing categories, up to 10 official suppliers providing goods and services essential to the event, up to 10 official media partners providing advertising and guaranteed editorial essential to the event, along with local Phuket partner packages.
So from 2 feet to 2 wheels, the Grand Fondue New York, or GFNY, is coming to Thailand in 2023. Now, not being a cyclist, I have no idea what the GFNY is. What can you tell us about this brand new event that is coming next year?
The cycling phenomenon that is Grand Fondo New York (GFNY) is coming to Thailand in 2023, giving amateur cyclists a chance to get a feel for what it is like to participate in a professional race. After events in exotic locations around the globe such as Florida, Mexico, Portugal, and Uruguay, GFNY is coming to Thailand in 2023 with 2 locations, one in Krabi in February 2023 and one in Nakhon Ratchasima in October 2023. GFNY is a personal endurance challenge where you compete against others, the clock, and yourself. The event is designed to give amateur cyclists a taste of what it is like to participate in a professional bike race, and it is expected to attract thousands of athletes and their families and friends. Thus far, cyclists from more than 120 nations have participated in the races, and GFNY Thailand 2023 is also expected to boost both local and international tourism during the 2 events. The format is the same at all GFNY events across the globe, and the fastest participants are invited to compete at the Elite Racer Chorale at GFNY races as well as GFNY Championship held annually in New York City. The race is organized into different categories and routes, with both a long competitive route and a more relaxed recreational medium route. Cyclists can compete in both the individual races and in the GFNY team competition. In addition, participants can sign up for the him and her competition, where the focus is on helping each other across the finish line. Participants in the him and her category must finish within 30 seconds of each other in order to complete the race, meaning cooperation and assistance is the key. GFNY Thailand is organized by Asian Gate, part of GAA Events, a professional event organizer providing management services for sports events in Thailand and Southeast Asia. With the rapid growth of the sports event industry in Thailand and Southeast Asia, GAA Events have emerged as a leading player with a number of high-profile events in their portfolio.
And what commercial sponsorship and partnership opportunities are available for those interested in this brand new event?
Again, we have created a package of comprehensive commercial sponsorship and partnership programs, especially for the GFNY Thailand 2023, including 1 title and 1 presenting sponsor with naming rights to the event, 1 host sponsor providing goods and services essential to the events, up to 6 co-sponsors from non-competing categories, up to 10 official suppliers providing goods and services essential to the events, up to 10 official media partners providing advertising and guaranteed editorial essential to the events, along with local Krabi and Nakhon Ratchasima partner packages.
It's so good to see these mass participation events coming back. And last week, I got to have a chat with Chris Robb, who is the CEO and founder of Mass Participation World, to find out firstly, what is Mass Participation World, and what does the future hold for mass participation events post-COVID-19? As the author of the book Mass Participation Sport Events, so you're the perfect person to define what is mass participation sporting events.
It's a great question, Jay, one that I get asked pretty often. And, in the traditional sense, it's big running events, cycling events, triathlons, obstacle races, sometimes swimming events. And, how big's big? Anything over a couple of hundred people is mass. Increasingly these days, I say, well, if that's mass, why isn't, 2,000 kids playing a football tournament mass and, people playing in an amateur basketball or netball league or something. But in its core sense, where I come from, my 35 years in the history, it's those genres of events, often involving road closures and the like, to bring people together.
You've been part of some of the biggest mass events around the world, such as the Singapore Marathon. What does it take to produce and then organize a huge event that attracts thousands of people?
Yeah, look, been incredibly lucky in that space. And I think that the key word is collaboration. It's collaboration and partnerships, and even more important now as we come out of COVID. So, if you start at the real top of it, of the financial side of it, partnerships with brands and great opportunities in this industry for brands to access committed participants who, much more predisposed to, buy products and so on. But, that doesn't work well unless there's a great collaboration with the rights holder or event organizer. And sometimes it's the brand that organized those events themselves. But that real spirit of collaboration, how do they come together, understand each other's objectives and then deliver on them? It then obviously comes down to collaboration with city authorities, town authorities, wherever they may be, and there's lots of them involved, closing roads, impacting lots of stakeholders as you go through cities, whether that be places of worship, hotels, businesses, and so on. And, those events work best when there's collaboration all the way through, stakeholder engagement, as we call it, out on the route, not just kind of getting the police permit and then saying the event will go ahead and discover that there's an important wedding that can't get in because you haven't collaborated with the hotels along the way. So, real collaboration in that space. Then it's a whole bunch of suppliers that come together, barricades, marquees, timing companies, all those kind of things. And again, if it's not done in a collaborative space, it minimizes the opportunity of success, or I guess in the reverse, great collaboration maximizes the opportunity for success. And then it's all the participants, bringing them along in a willing way, collaboration in terms of communication, bringing them on a journey. And the more you communicate with them, the more engaged they become as fans, the more engaged they become with your partner brands, the more engaged they become with the event, and the more engaged they are on event day to collaborate with the various rules and requirements. Sometimes you've got 10, 20, 30, in the case of the Singapore Marathon, 60,000 people that we were working with. And if you approach that in a collaborative way, asking them how they queue up and all that kind of thing, you've got a much better opportunity of success. So, in a word, collaboration, big groups, volunteers. Singapore Marathon, we had 5,000 volunteers. So, that's collaborating with schools and educational institutions and the like to get those volunteers in the first place. It's then training them, it's deploying them. And again, that comes back to great collaboration with your bus companies that are deploying them, trains and so on, getting them out on the route. So yeah, lots of different elements, very complex. Hopefully the weather collaborates with you. Not that you can do much to influence on the day, but all the natural environments that you're exposed to. But in a word, I always say collaboration is key to success.
What's the importance of mass participation sports events to the economic impact for the Thailand sports tourism?
Yeah, look, I think often overlooked is the impact of the commercial impact of a mass participation event. And, that is obviously inbound participants coming to take part in an event. So, you're based in Phuket, people flying in from other countries. And that's obviously been stalled by the pandemic. And it's going to be a while, even now as we come out of it, how many international tourists and competitors you're going to be bringing in. But, people coming from other parts of Thailand to a particular region, the hotel bed nights, the money that they spend on their flights coming in, the food, the souvenirs they buy, all those kind of things. What's often overlooked is the people that they bring with them. There's different metrics in different places, but 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 people that travel with them that create an economic impact along those same sort of lines. And then I think that the part that is often overlooked and not always measured is the economic impact that's directly related to delivering the event. So the jobs that it creates, the suppliers that are engaged to deliver it. I touched on some of them earlier, barricades and marquees and sound systems and those sorts of things. And then the one that I think is becoming increasingly important, which is mostly overlooked, is the health and well-being impact. So typically these events governments will say, okay, let's measure the economic impact. And there's, there are accepted measures around room nights and so on. But what's not being measured, and we're actually doing some work on, is to understand the impact of the health and well-being uplift, particularly post-COVID. It's even more relevant. And we did a study a few years ago called the mass participation ripple effect, where we put out a white paper. We did some desktop research over 3 months with kind of parallel studies. And our thinking being that, for example, Jay decides that he's going to run in the Phuket Marathon. What positive health and well-being impact is he having on his community, whether that be a spouse, children, friends, work colleagues, and so on? And when we first set about to do the study, working with a world-renowned neuroscience and behavioral economics expert, he thought that we'd be able to prove that study, that ripple effect went 10 people deep. When we did the study, it appears, and we're hoping to do more detailed research, it appears that it could be as many as 200 people wide, for the simple reason, and I see your eyes opening wide there, which mine did as well. The simple reason, we were looking at it in a linear sense, but it's actually compounding. So the premise being that one participant will have an immediate circle of influence of 6 people, and those 6 people have their 6 people, and those 6 people have their 6 people. So as you get the 10 or so out, you're having a massive impact on the health and well-being. And then you say, well, okay, if that's relevant to health and well-being, what else is it relevant to? So, we'd say we might want to get a sustainability message out through these people, and you potentially are impacting 200 people for each person that's participating. From a buying perspective, it's okay, I run and I like, ASICS shoes. Am I impacting my broader network by them seeing me, wearing an ASICS shirt and running in ASICS shoes? So that's further study that we're doing at the moment. But so, in summary, economic impact of inbound participants, economic impact directly related to the operations of the event, and health and well-being event that is, and what we were trying to hit on there was that we tend to focus on these inbound people, but what about this massive impact that is being made on the community that the event's taking in? So, with that kind of ripple effect, an event in Phuket is basically impacting the health and well-being of people across Thailand, potentially.
You are the founder and CEO of Mass Participation World. Can you tell us about MPW and what it does?
Yeah, thanks. Essentially, it's an industry body, so bringing the industry together globally, promoting collaboration, best practice. I started it in 2015 at the same time as I published my book, recognizing that we have this really fragmented industry within cities, within countries, and even globally, and looking at this opportunity. It first started out as Mass Participation Asia, as a conference in Singapore, and as it's evolved, down to the present time, it's really this collaboration that the conference facilitates, but education, podcasts, best practice, research, the stuff that I've alluded to already, but really saying, how can we bring this enormous industry together globally to positively impact the lives of many millions of more participants, putting on safe events, growing events, and really, one of my big efforts around that is lobbying and advocacy and getting governments to really recognize particularly this health and well-being benefit. We have a global council which coincidentally met last night. So we have World Athletics, World Triathlon, World Obstacle, World Orienteering, the UCI, which is the governing body for cycling. And then we have representatives from literally all over the world. There's over 30 people in the group, and we meet every 2 months, and we literally just exchange knowledge of what's happening in our industry around the world. What our participation levels are, what are some of the challenges, what are the innovations that are happening. So the big dream is that, we call ourselves an industry, but the reality is that we're just these fragmented parts. And, if I look back on this in 5 or 10 years time and say, has it been successful? My hope is that we have a more cohesive, aligned industry in country, in city, and globally that's benefiting, the health and well-being of humanity.
You use a number of different platforms to reach out and inspire others, from articles on your LinkedIn and webinars. If we came to one of your webinars, what would we expect to hear?
Yeah, look, the topics vary relevant to the industry and what's going on at present. So, we're going to be doing one in September, which is going to focus around the business challenges, the business model, cash flow, and those sorts of things. But, we do them sometimes on volunteers, marketing, all sorts of different relevant topics. I co-host about every 6 weeks, one with World Athletics, and I basically curated and I host. When I say co-host, I actually host the session. They're usually 2 hours long with experts from all over the world. Sometimes they're sharing World Athletics information. The last one we had was around their label race program. I try to write, informative and sometimes provocative example articles around, the state of the industry. What do we need to do to evolve the business model? I published one recently about, we have a term in mass participation, DNF, did not finish. And sometimes that's a badge of dishonor, for want of a better expression, of, you failed. But I'm saying, well, you haven't really failed, because you've done all this journey to get to the start line. And even if you get to the 20K mark, you've done more than most. And the question I posed is this potentially a time to DNF, finish in your business? Do not finish your business. People are struggling. Many businesses have gone under. There's many businesses that are laboring to try and survive in really tough conditions. And I'm saying, well, is it necessarily such a bad thing to recognize that business has maybe reached its end date and there's another opportunity that, one door closes, another door opens. So, across all of those technical stuff, career advice around the industry and so on, I have a podcast called The Aid Station, which I think we just put out episode 223. We've interviewed people from 57 countries. I started that at the beginning of the pandemic to try and bring a bit of a bright spot. The tagline is a cup of inspiration with Chris Robb. And the idea is, interviewing people from, CEO of World Athletics and Ironman to someone working in a charity organization in Mexico that's impacting our industry, to famous former athletes, to hear their take on the industry and what's happening. And then, I also run different, master classes and those sorts of things.
What does the post-COVID future hold for mass sporting events?
Yeah, Jay, it's a great question, and I'm currently in the early stages of research to write my second book, which is going to be called Mass Participation 3.0. And we hear lots of talk about Web3, obviously, and in many ways, the mass participation industry has mirrored the web. Our Web 1 version was the amateur version leading up to the kind of 70s and 80s running boom. The Web 2 version was some degree of professionalization and commercialization that's brought us to now. And we have a very broken business model, and people are really struggling at the moment. So on one level, this industry has this amazing opportunity to impact the health and well-being of communities that desperately need it. But on another level, we are really struggling to rebuild in a more commercial way. I think governments need to play a huge part of it, not only from a funding perspective, but in terms of removing barriers for permits and putting on events and so on. I think it's very much about collaboration. I mentioned that I had my global council call last night, and the kind of the sense of recovery is that, a few very optimistic people are saying we'll be recovering in 2020 through 2023, but the smart money seems to be 24 and 25 before the industry recovers. In many countries, we've lost, some of the people even in Thailand are telling me we've lost about 75 to 80% of the industry. So to rebuild that to the levels of where it's at, it's going to take some significant amount of time. It's going to take brands to recognize this amazing opportunity to connect with committed participants and share the journey with them. I'm ever an optimist. I think we will have an enormous industry, but the question that I constantly keep posing in this new Web 3.0 model, are we an event business or are we a health and well-being community business? And when I say that, I believe that events form an enormous part of it, but it's all about bringing participants on a journey that lasts all year round, that's contributing to their holistic health and well-being. If we think we're going to build a sustainable business model on just putting on, one big event as a company, or 5 or 10 or 15 events a year as part of a portfolio, without engaging those participants on an ongoing journey, I think it's going to be a really tough a tough challenge. But if we can bring it together and say, hey, Jay, we want to engage with you. We'll take you on your journey that contributes to your health and well-being. And part of that might be doing the Phuket Triathlon or the Phuket Marathon. But there's a whole lot of other things that we can do with you. I think those will be the more successful businesses. And I think that'll be more the core of what our business is about.
Chris, that's fantastic. Thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Jay. Wonderful to catch up.
Seeking sponsors. Seeking an opportunity to sponsor. Looking to maximise an already sponsored opportunity? Visit paulpaul.co.th, the sponsorship experts.
As I said before, it's so good to see these events all coming back, as it's been a very difficult few years for many industries that rely on events and expos, one of course being the sponsorship industry. And in the latest newsletter, there is a fantastic article on the future of the sponsorship industry post-COVID-19.
Absolutely, Kunjay. Postponements and cancellation have been the name of the game in the past few years, as the coronavirus has wreaked havoc on live events in the sports, arts, entertainment, and MICE, meetings, incentive, conventions, and exhibitions industries. However, the industry appears to be making a comeback, and here we take a closer look at the industry from the good to the bad and the uncertain. According to a new report by stateofsponsorship.com, there are many reasons to be bullish about the state of sponsorship. Investment into cryptocurrencies, the emergence of hobbies as professional sport businesses, the introduction of NFTs, and new content offerings have all provided opportunities for sponsorship that have the promise to significantly alter the industry. Based on surveys from 217 sponsorship professionals from over 200 organizations in 15 countries and 1,771 consumers from 14 countries, the report offers insight into the differences and commonalities of different countries and sectors. The good. There is overall agreement that sponsorship works. It's here to stay, and there are plenty of growth opportunities on the horizon. 5 topics are identified as drivers of growth: the resilience of the industry after COVID-19, an abundance of deals and opportunities, the emergence of technological improvements and new formats, the emergence of new brands and categories, and an abundance of money. Another positive finding in the report is the general alignment between consumers and industry professionals regarding the benefits of sponsorship. For example, industry professionals see brand awareness and purchase conversions as some of the main benefits, while consumers think sponsorships helps increase their awareness of the brand, as well as increase their consideration of purchasing, using, or visiting the brand. One of the main topics of discussion when it comes to sponsorship these days is the impact of technology on sponsorship. According to the survey, 65% of industry professionals agree that the industry is embracing innovation and technology. With evolution in content delivery, NFTs, and augmented reality identified as the top technologies creating waves within the industry. In addition, consumers are actively participating and are interested in the innovation coming to the sponsorship world. In terms of brands and properties leading the way in innovation, Nike is the undisputed number one for both industry professionals and consumers, with Adidas and Red Bull also mentioned. In terms of properties, industry professionals tend to mention the NFL and NBA as the most innovative, while consumers tend to call out sport categories as opposed to specific properties, with soccer football taking the lead. The bad. There's concern over the amount of clutter in sponsorship and in measuring attribution and return on investment. According to the report, these concerns are widespread and may be contributing factors to an overarching lack of transparency felt by industry professionals that headlines this section. 59% agree that sponsorship lacks transparency. When it comes to challenges in the industry, 69% see the difficulty of internally demonstrating the value of sponsorship versus other types of marketing spends as one of the major challenges, closely followed by measuring attribution and impact. A third commonly identified challenge is understanding and valuing an asset. Similarly, Properties face the same challenge of delivering and demonstrating value to partners. Sports is largely considered best in class in delivering awareness and ROI, but struggles significantly on white space clutter, with 72% agreeing that sports sponsorship is becoming increasingly difficult to navigate. The unknown. Looking ahead, 77% of industry professionals believe that the sponsorship industry is yet to reach its peak, with 42% saying they think the industry is nowhere near its peak yet. 43% feel the industry is undergoing an evolution with mixed undertones of optimism and concern. When it comes to momentum, there is a disconnect between what professionals see as having the strongest momentum and what consumers want to see sponsors getting more involved in. While industry professionals believe athletes and personalities have the strongest momentum, consumers would like to see more sponsorship going into causes and charities.
Fingers and toes are all crossed. So, finally, the 2019 Data Protection Act has come into effect on the 1st of June 2022, after being postponed since May 2019 due to COVID-19. What can you tell us about this, Kumporn, and how will it affect sponsorship?
The first law in Thailand to govern data protection, the Personal Data Protection Act, BE 2562, PDPA, sets forth requirements and responsibilities of those who collect, control, and process data, including both private and public entities. The law, which was first published in the Royal Gazette in May 2019, was postponed twice due to COVID-19, but was introduced on 1st June 2022. Under the new law, anyone who wishes to collect, process, or disclose personal data must first receive consent from data subjects. Subjects now have the right to object to the collection, usage, or disclosure of their personal data and demand for the data to be erased. The PDPA sets forth civil, criminal, and administrative penalties for breaching the Act, including fines from a few thousand baht to 5 million baht and imprisonment up to 6 months. While many larger companies are already adhering to many of the sections of the PDPA, data suggests that understanding and adherence is limited in especially smaller companies and community enterprises. The Bangkok Post reports that according to a PDPA readiness survey by the Thai Board of Trade and the University of Thai Chamber of Commerce, only 8% of almost 4,000 businesses interviewed said they have taken measures to be fully compliant with the law, while 31% indicated they have not even started the process of compliance. A few days into the new act, the Joint Standing Committee on Commerce, Industry and Banking, JSCCIB, asked the government to delay full enforcement of the PDPA until clear directions are issued, and 12 organic laws completed, a process needing 18 months to complete, according to the Bangkok Post. As a result, Digital Economy and Society Minister Shaiwut Thanakkamunusorn announced just weeks after the act went into effect that regulations aimed at relaxing the enforcement of penalties were being introduced. The regulations were focused on those who did not intentionally break the law during the transition period. Shaiwut Thanakkamunusorn said that the act was not aimed at creating a burden for SMEs and community enterprises. What the PDPA means for the sponsorship industry is yet to be seen. Shaiwut Thanakkamunusorn has repeatedly said entrepreneurs who are careful in dealing with their customers' information should not be worried about penalties under the PDPA, and many companies already adhere to the European Union's General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR, on which the PDPA is built. We welcome the PDPA with open arms, says Paul Pohl, founder, managing director, and chairman of the Sponsorship Experts. It's always a good idea to have set and defined standards for best practices. It lays bare the rules of the game and gives right holders and brands the framework for offering the best services to their audience. The sponsorship experts are committed to safeguarding your right to privacy and your personal data. Please find our privacy policy at paulpohl.co.th/privacy-policy.
Thank you, Kumporn. That's very interesting. So, if anyone is interested in any of these commercial sponsorship and partnership opportunities or learning more about commercial sponsorship and partnership marketing, what should they do?
We can be contacted through our website paulpol.co.th, by email info@paulpol.co.th, or keeping with the audio vibe, pick up the telephone and dial +66 2622 0605 or 0606 or 0607.
Excellent. Thank you, Kumporn.
Thank you, Kun Jay. Kun Paul, I, or one of my colleagues look forward to speaking with you again next month.